Become successfully unemployed, reach financial independence, and build wealth through real estate with Dustin Heiner. This week on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. All right, today's guest is an expert real estate investor who quit his job, get this, at the age of 37 years old with financial freedom and passive income from his real estate investing. Super cool. I love real estate investing. With his coaching, podcast, and YouTube channel, Master Passive Income, he's helped thousands of people to invest in real estate as well. He's also the founder of Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference, where he brings thousands of real estate investors together and help them connect with each other and grow their real estate investing business together. Welcome, the founder of Master Passive Income, Dustin Heiner. Dustin, what's going on, man?
What's up, Chris? How are you doing, man? It's so good to see you again. It's been a while since I've been on your show, but man, when I was like, okay, I'm gonna be on Chris's show, Heavy Metal Money. I'm like, dude, this is so cool. I love heavy metal as well as money as well. Like,
That's
I
awesome.
love the game of making money. It's honestly, that's really what it comes down to. Like real estate for me, I found it as a way where I worked one time and get paid over and over again. And now I have 30 plus properties. I've got almost 1,000 apartment units, hotels that I invest in as well. And so I have all my time back, and then I get to come on podcasts and come on talk to great people like you and
That's
not
awesome.
work a 9 to 5, and especially 40 plus hours of my life back. I mean, wouldn't everybody love to get 40 plus hours of their
Right,
life back?
right. Absolutely. Well, so that's the thing. When I talk to people and they hear that I invest in real estate, a lot of times they'll tell me, I really wish I could, or you know what? I always thought about doing that, right? So what do you think people fear? You know, I mean, like, do you think people fear real estate investing because of the risk or because of the responsibility? What's your thought? What prevents people from actually taking action?
Well, the number one thing I've ever seen is the fear of losing money. That's really what it comes down to. Because in the end, let's say you buy a money pit and it doesn't do very well and you lose money, then they're fearful of that. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm fearful anytime I invest. In fact, we're buying a almost 100 unit apartment complex near Nashville, and I'm putting my money in to buy it. It's always something that you're like, oh, let's hope it works out well or not. But here's the thing: if you do it right, you don't have to hope. You have a business plan, a business model that does that. You know exactly. Like, I know without a shadow of a doubt it's going to work out very well. Now there's off chance a Mercury might have hit, or like a comment or something, like some terrible thing might happen to the property. But as it sits, it's going to be a great thing. Now the fear is risk. That's really so that the fear of this risk that you're putting in something, which is losing money. But here's what I realized when I just had our fourth child. My wife just had our fourth child, and I went on paternity leave, and I come back in that same week, I get laid off. And I realized, my goodness, putting my life in somebody else's hands and depending on them is so much more risky than doing things on my own. And so if you're listening to this and you're starting to think, man, I would love to invest in real estate, but it's too risky. Think about the idea. I worked for the government. My job, I did IT for the government in California. Those all three are not going away. Government, California, and IT. And I still got laid off. And so if I got laid off from the government, it could and probably will happen to you. And what I realize, that saying, really great saying, it's not if you get laid off or fired from the job, it's when. And I shook it off. I said, I got the most stable, secure job ever, and I got laid off. And so I believe now, and now on the other side, where I've got a lot of money coming in, 30 plus properties. Some properties are making me $3,000 a month in passive income. It's absolutely amazing. And now on the other side with multiple businesses, all my time, all the freedom, I realize it is 100,000 times more risky putting your life in somebody else's hands who can
Mm,
lay you off, or they could screw up their business. They could get a divorce. They could become an alcoholic and get in jail, whatever it might be. Somebody else's hands. You're trusting them. So that's what I suggest is you're fearful, I get it, of losing money. But at the same time, you should be fearful of losing your job and not having something to fall back on. Or you should be thinking, my goodness, I could quit my job. I could become successfully unemployed and never work for somebody and have money coming in all the time, every single month.
right, right. You know, you mentioned something in the very beginning there. You said something about building a business, and that was one thing that my mindset shifted where, you know, I went into my real estate investing not as just a hobby, a little thing I'm going to do. I treated it like you were building a business. So talk a little bit about that, how you think that building a business before buying the property is kind of the number one thing, right?
Well, it's 100% prerequisite. Like if you do not build the business first, be ready for trouble. Be ready for problems. In fact, lots of people, I've coached thousands of people. I know even more investors in general. I'm an investor, been doing it for 20 years, and so I know so many people. And then when people come to me that want coaching, they say, "Hey, Dustin, I bought a house and I did everything those TikTok gurus told me to do. And then I spent thousands of dollars to buy the property, thousands of dollars to fix up the property, try to find a tenant, nobody wanted to rent it, and then try to find a property manager, and nobody wanted to manage it because every property manager I called, they would tell me, no, I will not manage it because I'll get shot there." Well, like you
Mm,
no longer have an asset, you have a liability. And so instead, what we need to realize is you need to build a business first. And here's something that those TikTok or Instagram gurus will never tell you. I'm going to tell you this. This everybody needs to know this, and you know already know this, Chris. We need to stop being investors and start being business owners. And what that looks like is, if you're an investor, you're going to put money in a stock market and you're going to hopefully and you're going to pray that the value goes up and doesn't crash on you. That's giving it to somebody else. That's a quote unquote investing. Well, being a business owner, we do invest our money. That's for sure. For sure. We definitely invest our money. But we look at it, if you're going to do it right, you need to look at it as a business owner. Let me give you a quick example of what that looks like. Let's say you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all the good stuff. Well, you would not sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. You wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. So you get the gondolas, those are shelving units, all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, employees, insurance, like everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Once you build the entire business, get everything working right, then you buy the inventory. My real estate, every piece of property that I own, 30 plus single family homes, apartment units, and hotels, this is all inventory for my business. Now, grab that in your mind. It has to be a business. We hire experts to do the work for us. So we'll get to that experts in just a minute. But
mhm.
when you start a business, here's the number one thing, and also the number one reason why in 2008, everybody that quote unquote called themselves real estate investors, or they thought they were real estate investors, but they were speculators, which means they were hoping of the value of the homes would go up in value. The reason why thousands of that, like most people who call themselves real estate investors went bankrupt was because they were hoping for values to go up. Business owners do not hope that the thing that they buy as inventory will go up in value. No, they make money on it. Let me share what that exactly looks like. Let's say you had a candy bar business, and that candy bar business, you could buy a candy bar for 50 cents, and you knew all day, every day, you can sell it for $1. Well, you'll buy it for 50 cents, sell it for $1, you'll make 50 cents, which is great. What you would not do is buy it for $2, hoping that in 2 years it's going to be worth $3 eventually sell. You don't do that. When you build a business, you make money on every single transaction. And the great thing about real estate, one quick side note, let's say you didn't even have 50 cents to buy the candy bar, but you knew you could sell it for $1 and it costs you 25 cents to borrow the 50 cents. Well, you're out of pocket 75 cents. You still sell it for $1. You make 25 cents. You'd be thinking, how do I borrow more money to make more money? And so when you boil everything down, if I condense it all in one, we build the business first by hiring the experts before we buy any real estate. And they're the ones going to make sure we find the right properties. They're going to inspect it for us. They're going to manage it. They're going to do all the contracts. They're going to build it up. They're going to do the refinancing. We do that. And we also make income from every property we buy. My suggestion is $500 a month in cash flow from every single property. And then you are not worried. You don't have any risk anymore because now you have a business that's built that makes you money. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, you have these cash flowing assets. So even, I mean, that's one thing too. I know that I've talked on another podcast too, where they were questioning, well, wouldn't you be afraid of if the property market were to crash, or if you are over leveraged or whatever? Well, my properties that I currently rent out, well, I'm going to have them, like I bought them to hold them and to rent them out. People need places to live. They're still a cash flowing asset for me. So if I can just hold them, I think I can weather any sort of volatility the real estate market has. That's the way I look at it.
You're 100% right. Well, volatility, number one, thinking about the cash flow coming in. I'm always going to make money. In fact, in 2008, when everybody was going bankrupt, I was worried because I was a new investor. Because I started in 2006, I was worried that I was going to go bankrupt because everybody else was. But here's the amazing thing: I made more money when everybody else is going bankrupt. I made more money because here's what happened: 2009, 10. Sadly, people were losing their jobs and they were losing their homes in foreclosure. Well, I bought them up as many as I could, but they can't live in a home that they're not that they own, so they have to become a renter. Supply and demand. There's so much more demand. My rents went up because there were more demand in a bad economy for my properties. Now, here's another amazing thing. We've all been concerned and irritated and so mad at inflation. How inflation has just been destroying our money. But here's the amazing thing: my rents go up with inflation. Inflation does not bother me at all, meaning it doesn't affect how much money I make versus how much things cost. That's what I mean. 100% bothers me that there is inflation that's 10% every year or something like that. Like, it's just terrible. But it does not affect me like it does other people because rents go up with inflation and I continue to make more and more money. And so now some properties. So back in 2006, I bought a few properties and then I've bought more and more and more every single year since then. And the ones I bought in 2007, 8, 9, they were making me, well, they were probably total rents were like $550 to $600. These were really low priced homes. But I was making about $600 in total rent. So I was making about $300 a month in cash flow. Now, those same homes, 1000 and what, 25, 26 now. So those same homes, they're renting for $1,200. So doubled the amount of
Wow.
rent and those mortgages are paid off. And so I'm getting 1,200 bucks a month outside of, property management fees and stuff like that. But my goodness, just over time, you make more money.
Oh, absolutely. And again, I very similar scenario. I have five properties they're all townhomes in the same development. And for instance, those townhomes, when I bought the property back in 2016, 2017, my rents were like $1,300 a month. I was charging my renter, and now that same property rents for like $1,900 a month. So it's and again, a few of them they're paid off. I have no mortgage on them. So
Oh, that's so great.
yeah, you can
The
definitely
biggest
tell.
expense we have is our mortgage. And so if
Absolutely.
you can get to the yeah, if you can get to the point where you own the asset or control it, not necessarily own it, where you can get sued and all that sort, but you control it because you have LLCs and all that sort of stuff,
Hmm.
but you have no mortgage on it. That is so much money. When I was quitting my job and when I was 37 years old, my wife said, "Hey, we got a lot of mortgages. Before you quit, can we pay off a lot of these mortgages?" And I wasn't really excited about it because that's money I couldn't buy more real estate with. But I saw this smart or how smart it is, the wisdom in it. And so we paid those off. And oh my goodness, with 35 prop ish, 34, 35, I can't remember how many we have. I think we have maybe 6 properties that have a loan on them. The rest are free and clear. And so that's a lot of money every single month coming in that we just keep buying more and more real estate.
That's awesome. What was that very first? You mentioned back in 2006. I'm just curious because, again, if someone's on the fence, they think this is what they want to do. What was the thing that made you buy your very first rental property?
Yeah, the thing that made for me was found out in 2006. I read a terrific book. Hopefully, some of you listening have heard of it. It's called Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Hmm.
And the premise of it basically is there's active income and there's passive income. Active income is what we're taught going to school. Like, this is the game plan that we're taught ever since we're born. You go to school, you get good grades. You take those good grades, you go to college or university and get thousands of $1,000s into debt, and you be given a degree, a piece of paper, and you go try to find a career, and then you work active income until you're 40 plus years later, and then you retire and try to live on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time. Well, I'm going out on the exact same thing, and like I said at the beginning, I got laid off. And getting laid off, I just started questioning everything. I was like, what is
Mm.
going on? If I can get laid off, did I just waste my life doing this? And I just had our fourth child, or my wife did. We had our fourth child. I was like, does that make me a failure as a father? Does it make me a failure as
Wow.
a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? I just got laid off. And then the catalyst was active income. You work one time and you get paid one time. Passive income, you work one time, you get paid over and over and over again. When I buy one property, That property does the work for me. Now there's a little work here and there. I hire experts, property managers, contractors, mortgage brokers, like they do all that work. And my property is what makes me money. That's what's working for me. And so the catalyst for me was realizing that it's so much more risky working for somebody else, so much less risky when I have a business model, a system. In fact, I now invest in five different states: Ohio, Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, and Indiana. And in every single one of these, I basically started my business, created a system, and then I just every city and every state just kept duplicating it. And I realized, oh my goodness, I got a system here that it worked out really, really well. And now that's what I coach, thousands of students now at Master Passive Income is coaching them how to basically this system. It's really think of it like a franchise or like a business where there's a business model. You just follow X, Y, and Z, and you're going to be successful. And that's what I did when I created it.
Right on. Well, so let's say they started on their own. What is that mistake you typically see those first time investors make?
Biggest mistake I've ever see is there's two of them, two main ones. Number one is not building the business and not knowing where the property is and if it's a good area or not. Like if you're investing out of state, then you don't like I lived in California in 2006 when I was first buying real estate and invested in Ohio. I'm not an expert in Ohio, let alone California. Not expert, definitely at all, but Ohio too. But if you're investing far away from you and you just say I'm just going to buy a house and then hope it works out, you're going to get hurt really, really bad. So what I suggest, you build the business, you find the right people, they make sure you find the right properties. And so instead of telling a property manager, hey, property manager, I bought this property, will you manage it? And they say no, because they'll get shot there. Then you have a liability. Instead, this is a key. You call up your property manager that you've already vetted beforehand, before you bought a property. Hey, property manager, I'm looking to buy this house. Not already bought it. I'm looking to buy this house. Tell me how much will it rent for? What's the vacancy factor? What's the clientele like? And will you manage it? If they say no, then you don't waste your time and hard earned money and effort to do it. But if they say yes, you have expert information. So that's number one. That's the biggest one. But here is the second thing that everybody must realize. Everybody must realize when you're investing in real estate, your number one goal outside of after you build the business, but when you buy the property, is making sure your cash flow, your passive income is an expense line item. So I did this back in 2006. I made sure that I was making $500 a month from every single property in cash flow. That's after property management, taxes, insurance, like mortgage, everything is paid for. And then I made sure there was a line item, an expense line item that says, income for me and my family was $500. And so I didn't hope to make $500. It was an expense, just like I know my mortgage is an expense. And so here's a great thing. And Chris, because you have properties, you absolutely get this. So I don't pay my mortgage on any of my properties. I don't pay my taxes. I don't pay for insurance. I don't pay for property managers, meaning I don't have to get a job to pay for those things. My tenants pay for those. The money comes into me and I pay out all those bills. So the third thing, the last one I want to give you. The first one is building a business. Second one is making sure you're making cash flow. Third one is making sure, especially if you're brand new and you bought one or two homes, every single time somebody, mom and pop investor, is going to say, I'm managing my properties myself. Like, oh no, don't do that, because then you're stuck doing it. And when you want to scale 30, 40, 50, 60 properties, you can't do it by yourself. In fact, even if you quit your job and you were just managing your properties, there's too many properties and you'll be pulling your hair out. Wouldn't you much rather go and travel the world or pick up a new hobby or play with your kids, like, or do whatever you want? How about hiring somebody else? So the third thing is making sure that expense for a property manager is accounted for before you buy the property. Now, if you manage it yourself, then you just put that money in your pocket, which is great, but at least you have the money to afford a property manager
Yeah.
when you realize I don't have time, I want to hire somebody else.
Yeah. So a couple things that I caught there. So one, I always look at it because you're building a business. That was one thing. I was self-managing when I had just a few properties, and that was where that light bulb moment where it's like, no, I want to work on my business, not in my business. And so that's when I first hired a professional management company. It was one of those where you gotta vet them, right? You gotta talk to other other investors? Who do they use? You're talking with other people. And so it did take me some time to go through a couple property management companies before I found one that I'm just dialed in. Now I've had the same one now for the last several years, but that's what really made it grow to me. Like you said, finding the right management company to kind of move forward. I think that's huge. I think that one of the biggest challenges for someone, they want to get started in this and they're like, man, I don't know how I'm going to afford to buy my rental property. So I want to talk to you. You have mentioned how there are some creative ways to finance property. And I want you to talk through the creative, weird, strange ways, but really also the straightforward ways. Like, this is how you can get going.
Everybody has two limitations in their minds, which are not limitations. I'll say that right out of the gate. Everybody has that, like, they think of these things as the limitation to their success. Finding, how do I find the properties and how do I fund those? So I have my podcast, the Master Passive Income podcast, where it's just a solo show, me coaching how to do this stuff. And the most downloaded, the most listened to ever are financing properties and finding those, because that's what they think the limitation is, which it's not. But let me help everybody to realize, no matter where you are in your investing journey, well, if you're watching this on YouTube, I have my daughter. She's in the background. You can see her. She's a picture of her. You can barely see her. She's 16 years old now. She just bought her first rental property, took her entire life savings. I coached her how to do it. She bought her first rental property. She makes $318, $19 a month, every single month in cash flow. So that is, if she could do it, you are more than likely by far a much better position financially. Okay, so that's number one, is if my daughter can do it, you can do it. But here's number two. Number two is money is not the problem. If you have a good deal, the deal is going to be so attracted to lots of other people. So now, you asked about creative financing. I've used at least 20 different creative financing strategies that have made me lots of money to buy real estate. Let me give you a couple of coaching students that I've coached. So there's a pastor in Sacramento. He said, Dustin, I know that I can't work forever. I want to start investing in real estate. And he didn't have any money, didn't have any 401k, didn't have anything. But what he did have, we found out or realized, he had a house he bought in 2017. It had a good amount of equity. So what we did was get a home equity line of credit on his primary residence where he lives, got $200,000 in equity that he was able to use. He used that to buy a house in Atlanta, Georgia. Bought that house in Atlanta, Georgia, and now this new home is free and clear, which means there's no loan on it because he used his primary. Hope you guys are tracking with that. So this new home, free and clear, he fixes it up, gets it rented, starts making money, and then he refinances that property in Atlanta, pulls that cash back out, because remember, there's no loan on it. Then he pays off his HELOC, his home equity line of credit, on his primary residence. Then he has it to do it all over again, meaning that HELOC is back down to zero because he paid it off. Now he can borrow that money again to buy the next house. That's just one creative way.
Those that may hear this sometimes referred to as the BRRRR method, right? Where you're going to rehab, refinance, repeat. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. In 2006, that was the first property I ever did. I quote unquote bird it. I bought it and then I refinanced it, pulled the cash out and bought more properties. Obviously, the term wasn't made back then, but it's a brilliant way. If any investor can get to that, the faster you can get to burring, the better, because it's so many great reasons. So I'm going to give you two more really creative financing ones. So here's a great one. Right now, there are lots of properties that have high interest rates, or sorry, when you try to buy one, you have high interest rates, high prices. But here's a great thing you can do. This is creative. You can actually take over the loan of a current property. Let me give you an example. So I was on a coaching call and a new course on creative financing. And one was called Subject to, which means you take over the property subject to or according to the mortgage that's currently on it. I put that out, as well as how to put the mortgage in your name so you now have it in your name. So I put that out, and one of my students, he was like, oh, that's really interesting. And so he watched it the next day. And then the following week, I showed him how to find the properties that have these low interest rates already. They're still 2.5%. I showed him how to find it. And then he found a property, and within 2 weeks, he already had a property locked in. He's already closed on it, but he took over that 2.5% interest rate. Imagine doing that. Imagine getting a 2.5% interest rate. You can't, but you can take over properties. There are people, sadly, get divorces, they're moving, whatever, death, and they need to get out of the property. They really need to get
Are
out,
there
but they have a
are there
mortgage.
specific mortgages that are not assumable though? It doesn't work every time, does it?
So let me share it this way. It works 100% every single time in different facets, meaning you can call like supposedly certain types of loans aren't quote unquote assumable. Like you can't just assume it. Well, there's a workaround, which I'll get to that workaround in just a second. But FHA loans are assumable. They're I think inherently by their nature they have to be assumable. VA loans are assumable. There are a lot of the loans that are already assumable. But now let's look at the ones that the bank says no, you can't assume it. What does the bank care about? Does the bank want the property or does it want the interest and the
Right.
money?
Right.
Hey, so here is subject to where this is advanced strategy. Let's say we find a house where somebody they need to get rid of the property and they're just like take it from me. I need help. Well, here's what you do. You get the property, the title, the ownership goes into your name or your business name, it doesn't matter, but from the government, you get it put in your name. You get the seller to agree it, and it happens all the time. So you get the seller agree, put in your name. Then you get their login information to their mortgage company. So you able to log in, you change the email address, you change everything to where now you have control over that mortgage. It's still in their name. So it's still in the name, and you start making payments out of your account. Now, the property still has a lien, so it still needs to be paid off, meaning there's still a mortgage against it. But what's great is you get a contract, the buyer releases all, let's say, what is it, ownership rights and everything to that property. Now, that mortgage is still in their name. So if you want to go buy another house, that mortgage is not even seen on your record, on your credit. So you go buy another one. But that is the workaround. And here's the great thing you can even call up banks and say, Bank, I am taking over the mortgage payments for this property. And they're like, okay, as long as we get paid, that's all we care about.
Hmm. That's amazing. Yeah.
There are, like I said, 20 different ways to get financing. So if you're thinking money is your problem, trust me, trust me, trust. I can't say this enough. Trust me, money is not the problem. Your lack of options are the problem. So I've used conventional loans. I've used private money, that's borrowing from friends and family. Hard money, getting like a short-term loan from institutions. There's portfolio loans where you get small banks, regional banks to lend you their money. I've used commercial loans. I've used debt service coverage ratio loans, which is a whole ball of wax, which is a fantastic loan. Don't worry about that. We can cover that later. But I've used signature loans, which I walked into a bank. My bank that I banked at said, hey, I need money. Can I borrow some money? They said, sure, here's a piece of paper. It's an unsecured line of credit. Wasn't connected to my car, my house, or anything. I just got a line of credit, just like your credit card is line of credit. I use that to buy real estate. I've even used credit cards, a cash advance to buy real estate. But
Wow.
here, if you remember that analogy of the candy bar, remember, I got like at least 12 more that we can go through. Imagine an analogy of that candy bar. You can buy it for 50 cents, but it costs you 25 cents to borrow it. You're out of pocket 75 cents. You're thinking, how do I borrow more money because it's all paid for by the person buying the candy bar? Same thing with real estate. I don't pay the interest. I don't pay the principal. I don't pay the mortgage on my properties. My tenants do. The money comes to me and I pay out to all those bills.
Wow. Wow. Let's say you have some of your students or someone that, they're starting to get rolling. They have a few properties. Do you think there's ever a point where they should stop focusing on just buying more units? Because that's, I mean, when you start talking to people, even in the new real estate, like I'll go to like the Minnesota Real Estate Association, and sometimes you meet somebody new and first thing they have to say, oh, I own this many units or whatever. Is that always, I mean, you can't really judge success just by how many units you have. Is there a time when you should stop focusing on just the number of units and start focusing on like cash flow? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think your first property is focusing on cash flow. Absolutely, by far. I said like the number one problem with most investors, they don't start a business. Number two, they don't focus on cash flow. And so here's an example of what it looks like when somebody doesn't have cash flow, as well as they have lots of units. So I was talking to somebody. who had 1,000 apartment units. 4,000. I was like, wow, that's impressive. And they're all touting this. I got 4,000, 4,000, 4,000. It's supposed to
Sure.
be a big number, but I didn't ask this like where it was private or public. It was private. So I said, how long? Because I know the answer. How long have you been financially independent? She goes, oh, I'm not financially independent. Like, I still have to work a job. I said, wait a minute. You have 4,000 headaches
I don't
that you have to
understand.
deal with, and you're not financially independent. How is that possible? Well, the reason is they buy apartment complexes and they don't have any money in the deal. They have other investors that invest in. Long story short, they do not make any money. So it doesn't matter how many units you have, it's how much cash flow you have. Now, I'll give you an example how it should look like. So I suggest to make $500 every single month at minimum from every property you buy. So one property at $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year. I mean, that's great. That's an extra 6 grand, but that's just one property. And that's the minimum. What if you got 10 properties? That's $5,000 a month. That's a lot of money now. That's $60,000 a year without working. 20 properties, that's $10,000 a month. That is $120,000 a year. And this is passive income. You're taxed differently. So you're taxed a lot less and you're not working. So you just keep the economy of scale. Like you just keep going up and up and up. So what I suggest is if you focus on $500 a month from every single property you buy, by the end, let's say you get 10 properties, that's $5,000 a month. That's a lot of money. And then you're using that to buy more real estate. So it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't matter how many you buy, it's how much cash flow you make.
Right on. Yeah, I love that. I know when I first started getting into real estate, um, I was making $200 every single door. And then I quickly, um, after a few years in, I was like, yeah, that's just not enough. So then it was, okay, I got to make $500. And so that's exactly where I'm at as well. I mean, we could start going down. I know you own more than just residential real estate. So I am curious on some of the other types of real estate that you own, and are these syndication deals, or what do some of those other real estate investments look like?
So we have two large apartment complexes, and they are where I'm a general partner, one of four total. So three other general partners and myself. And so first one was a $35 billion apartment complex we bought near Nashville, 355 units. And amazing deal. We got it for $100,000 a unit when we could sell it for 130 right away. And so we captured a lot of equity, great cash flow on the property. And so being the general partner, I invest my own money, but I don't have, what was it, what we were raising, like $12 million or more. So I think it was like 12 or 13 million. We don't have that. Oh, the four of us, we put in our own money. I think I put in like $100,000+. Everybody put in 100 grand in, but we brought in other investors. What I hear of a syndication, that's basically somebody who's a flipper of apartment complexes. People flip homes, takes 3 to 6 months. Well, flipping apartments is another, I guess you can call it, strategy. I'm not a big fan of it because they try 3 to 5 years, they flip a property and hopefully sell it for more. So they buy it for market value and then hope in 3 to 5 years the value goes up and they sell it. And that's not a good business model. In
They're
fact,
gonna force appreciation, and like basically the ARV is going to be so much more, and then they refinance 7 years later.
yeah. And there are so many, in fact, big names in the real estate market that have been doing the quote unquote syndication that they're really hurting. They've stopped distributions. They've been doing capital calls where they ask for more money. They got the first investment, like, hey, if you want to keep your investment, you got to give us more money because we didn't buy the property right. We're losing money and we need you to give more money. And so some big names, which I'm not going to say, but some big names have done that. And I don't want to ever ask any of my investors for that. So I buy good investments. What I look at when you ask if it's a syndication, yes, we do get other investors, but it's not a syndication in a per se where it's like, let's just get as many people to invest. No, these are friends of ours. These are people that know us that invest in our deal as well.
I know that I've entertained the idea of some syndication deals. I know some people that it's worked for them. It's relatively successful, but man, every single time I try to get involved, it doesn't feel right. It feels
Oh,
slimy. It feels like they're really pushing the deal. They're overselling the deal. And then
totally.
one time I reached out to someone like I think minimum investment was like 50 grand in this one deal. And I was like, well, send me the info, let me look it over. I want to do my due diligence. And they never left me alone. I mean, they literally were calling me every single day. And I'm like, dude, like, I'm not going to be part of the deal because you're so annoying.
Well,
So
and the thing is, sadly, these people who call themselves investors, which I'm going to say that they're not, and they can get mad at me all they want, but they're the ones that are hurting right now. Where I'm making a lot of, I'm buying properties off of these people. So what happens is they buy properties at market value or higher, which I never do. We try to capture at least 20% in equity when we buy it, and so
you
what they
make
do
money
is
going into the deal.
correct. You make your money when you buy. You're 100% right. You realize it when you sell it. And so I'm an investor. I never pay market price. I try to, like I said, 10, 15, 20%. The more equity or percentage of equity that we can get, the better. And so what these people have done is they have their money into the deal, meaning like they had to put down their earnest money because they'll lose it if they don't close on this property. And so they need to get as many people as they can to give them money to buy this property. And here's what they do. Here's the sad thing, they pay themselves a lot of money in the purchase of the property from the investor's money. And then they also make a lot of money when they sell the property. It is not, I don't invest in those at all. I invest in my deals. And here's the great thing, whenever share with my investors, hey, here's the deal that they have, they love my deals because I know what it's like on both sides and I want to take care of them. And the biggest thing is, it's a great deal. And so they jump all over. It's not like I have to call them over and over again. Hey, are you in? Are you in? Are you in? I might send them a text here or there, but if they don't want to, we don't need their money because this deal is every deal is amazing. In fact, we're closing on a 94 unit apartment complex near Nashville, really close to the one we bought recently last year. And this property, we're raising 4 million, rather low amount of raise. Last year we bought one in Chattanooga for 12 million, 10 million, $10 million raise, and we bought it for like 35 million. But anyways, long story short, we just put out to our current investors who love our deals that are making a lot of money. They're like, yes, we're going to invest in that deal. So in like the Chattanooga property, because it was such an amazing deal, $60,000 a unit. We can go and sell it. We bought it for 60,000. We can go sell it for 110, 115 right away because the asset was distressed or the sellers were distressed. So we got it for a really good discount. People, all of our investors, like, this is an amazing deal. I'm like, yes, I know it is. So in 10 days, we raised $11 million in 10
Wow.
days because it's such an amazing deal. And so if you, yeah, so long story short, if you invest with people that you know, that you trust, that they're, let's say you're good friends with, or we really understand them and they have a good deal, they're not going to need to bang down your door.
Do you have any commercial, like triple net leases, like commercial, like retail or business office or
I
warehouse? Do you have
don't.
any of those?
I don't. And it's not that I don't like those. In fact, they're great when you get them. My bread and butter is residential, 4 units and below. So simple, so easy, and I don't have any headaches. Now, business, same thing. It's going to be the same, but it's a different asset class that I've honestly been more focused on helping others to invest. That I focus on my residential. Like we bought 3 properties this year. The apartment complexes that we buy, I'm not the expert. My two of the other partners are experts. They're the ones that do like 90% of the work. I'm just there for helping to raise money as well as a little bit of asset management. But they're the experts in that. I'm the experts in residential. We work together really, really well.
Yeah, we're in the middle of construction of my first commercial new construction, and the interesting thing that we've done there, and I've mentioned this I think on another episode too, but I tried to fund the entire deal myself. It was just a little bit too big for me to bite off. I needed such a large cash position. My lender was, because it was non-owner occupied, like I wasn't going to be the tenant in this building. So my commercial lender, because we got great terms via the commercial lender. So I went to a buddy of mine and I was like, hey, do you want to split this deal with me? And so it's literally just a partnership with my friend. And so we split it 50-50. But yeah, the beauty of those triple net leases is the fact that those taxes,
They're great.
insurance, and maintenance, it's additional rent on top of base rent. And they are paying that, where it's not like my residential properties where my AC unit goes out. Well, that's my money. I got to go pay $3,200 for a new AC unit. So
Yes,
yeah,
I love it. And I,
yeah.
yeah, I had a convenience store for a little while, started from the ground up, and
Okay.
I signed a triple net lease. And oh my goodness, like the lease payment, that's one thing. But then you get all the like the triple net on top of that. It was like another 50% on top. So the rent was like 2,200. This was back in 2007, I think. $2,200 for the rent. And then the triple net every month was like $1,000. It's like, what is this? Is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So I think that, and one thing just to let people know too, when I tell people like, oh, I'm building this new construction commercial, they're like, oh, commercial real estate's dying. It's like, yeah, our downtown St. Paul, downtown Minneapolis, like the business districts, sure, those are vacant. They're being converted into apartments and condos and stuff. But the interesting thing that we did is we did a build to suit. So it was something where we negotiated for almost a year and a half to find the tenant. They signed a 15-year lease before a shovel was even in the ground. And that was like, okay, I get how this machine can go now. And so that's like,
And they pay for all that the tenant improvements. Like, oh, you
yeah,
have you yeah, you have the insides like basically just bare minimum or even like no walls. It's just like anyways, they got to
we're
put
doing,
everything
yeah,
in.
we're doing the entire shell and then they build out the inside and they're basically leasing it from us. And it's pretty rad. And I'm learning along the way. I mean, I am not an expert in commercial stuff, but we ran into tons of, you know, permitting delays and working with the county and the city and utility. And I mean, we're far enough away rural that we're not on city water and sewer. So we actually had to get our own septic. And that whole thing was, it was, it was
Commercial building with septic.
yeah,
Wow.
it was almost a 4 month delay. I mean, it's not something that is uncommon where I am. I mean, it does happen, but we just kept on going back and forth with the county on different permitting issues, and so we are a little bit delayed. But the good news is we got all the groundwork done, so we can still build now that it's winter. So we actually got a couple walls up right now, and hopefully, yeah, we'll be collecting rent hopefully by January. Cross my fingers.
That will be so cool,
That'll be
man.
awesome. And then you know what? I'm looking for the next deal, right? Yeah, that's the whole thing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about building that generational wealth because I think it's pretty rad that you got your daughter involved. I think that's cool. What does her friends say? I mean, I suppose at 16, does she tell her friends like, "Oh, I own a
No, she doesn't
property"?
tell her friends. No, she doesn't.
Like it's kind of weird, right? But what do you hope your kids? You have a lot of kids. How many
Five
kids do you
kids.
have? Five kids? What do you hope your kids understand? Not necessarily about money, but about freedom. Like I don't know. What are some of those values you want your kids to understand?
Well, the big values that I really want them to understand is their worth. And for everybody, for you listening, you got to realize this too. You're worth more than anybody could ever pay you.
Mm,
You are worth more than anybody could ever pay you. And the reason why you'll know this when you go and work for a job, your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money it takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you're worth, they'd probably go broke. And so instead, you put the value that you put out into the world by your work ethic and how your knowledge, all that sort of stuff, and you want to get paid 100% of your value. And so, what I'm teaching my kids is real estate's one of them, but also starting businesses. Like I've taught my boys how to do electrical work around the house. I taught them how to remodel an entire bathroom. I remodeled my master bathroom with them. They were like 11 and 12. And then once we were all done, when they were like 12 and 13, I said, all right, boys, it's the half bath, the hallway bath. It's your turn to do it. And so they
I love
remodeled the
that.
entire thing. Now, I did the plumbing. I wanted to make sure it's not going to
Mhm.
leak, but they did the tile, they did the demo, they did everything. And they are learning skills that most people wouldn't have. So I'm like, there's no reason to go to college at all. In fact, a trade is worth so much more
Love that.
than your
Yeah,
college degree.
I have been screaming from the rooftops that we need more tradespeople, and if you're getting them involved so young, I think that's fantastic. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what I want my kids to realize is that number one, college is absolutely a waste of money. If you're going to be an engineer, doctor, lawyer, completely, I understand that. But if you're going to get like a art degree or yeah, just don't waste your time. You could read a book and learn that stuff. What you want is a way to make money to provide for yourself and your family. And there's so many other better ways to do that. So that's number one is the value on themselves. Number two is Don't go to a college university. You're wasting your money. If you took that same money, bought like 3 or 4 pieces of property or real estate, you're going to make so much more money than you could getting a piece of paper from the college degree. But at the same time, one thing I really want them to, is to impart in them the education, the ability to do it, because actually, not instead of like, sitting in a room in a school and getting told information, they're actually doing all this stuff with me. Like I said, remodeling the bathrooms to electrical work to my kids are taking the courses and they're learning from all these courses and they're putting into practice, and they are doing things that most people would never, kids would never do. And at the same time, like I have 4 other businesses, and in these businesses, I have my kids working in them. Like my kids now edit the podcasts. I've taught them a long time ago. So for like the last 4 years, my kids edit the podcast. And so it's as best I can, everything from being able to give my properties to my kids. Like you can't give your job to your kids. You can't do that, but you can give your properties. You can give the education. You can give them experience by bringing them around you.
Love that, man. As we kind of wrap up today, you've kind of talked about how real estate is basically like your freedom engine. What is something that you do now that you couldn't imagine doing back when you were working W-2? Like
Ooh,
what's that thing that you kind of splurge on now that, man, back then you wouldn't even have thought of?
lift weights 5 days a week for 2 hours a day. I do. I literally do. From like,
I've
well,
seen it,
that's
and I've seen that your wife makes fun of your shorts. So yes, I've seen that.
She does. I wear jorts. Those are jeans. Like in the 70s, they had those, and I just think they're fun. I just think they're fun. I wear them. She hates me wearing them. She said, "You're embarrassing me." I'm like, "Well, they make me stronger. That's why I still wear them." But I lift weights 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. So that's one practical thing is I get to do whatever I want. Now I travel the world, all that sort of stuff, which is great. But the mundane little things of being able to exercise, because I love doing that. If you want to play golf, if you want to be with your kids, if you want to take up a hobby, that is where I take my time. Or my time is so I love it. But here's one other small thing I realized the other day. You know, really appreciating the little things in life, the small things in life. So one thing I realized was I never wake up to an alarm clock. I never have an alarm clock wake me up unless I'm like flying somewhere and I got to get to the airport early in time. I never have an alarm clock wake me up. And that when I realized that, it was like 3 or 4 months ago, I realized, oh my goodness, for the last 10 years, I have not woken up to an alarm clock. This is the life. Like that.
Isn't
That
that
is
wild? Isn't that what I've only been retired for like a year and a half, and I was like, not having to wake up to an alarm clock is phenomenal.
it's
It
so
is great. It
amazing.
is great. Well, Dustin, thank you so much for hanging out today. I really do appreciate it. I want you to please share with everyone where they can find more about you and everything that you do.
Absolutely. So, would you mind if I gave everybody a free course, how to
My
invest in
gosh,
real
that'd be
estate?
fantastic. Absolutely.
Let me my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate and become financially independent. I want to give you a course that people just from this course will they invest in real estate. And if you text the word rental, rental, rental to 33777, rental to 33777, I'll send you my real estate investing course completely for free. You can also go to masterpassiveincome.com/free course, all one word /free course, and I'll send it to you. Here's also, I have my podcast. It's basically a solo show. It's called Master Passive Income. I've been doing it since 2015 into 2016. So I've been doing it a long time, and 2.2 million downloads now, and it's just a solo show. I was like, man, I got a lot of people listening to me, but my goal is to help 1 million people to invest. I make my money through real estate. And so this is just another way. So check me out on Master Passive Income, and also YouTube. You have all my videos as well. Get all my free content. But one quick thing too, I love now social media. I've actually, Chris, I've grown my Instagram to over 250,000 followers
Wow.
organically. Didn't buy any of those. It was hard work. But putting out great things that really, in fact, the most recent reel I put out, you guys got to check it out. I don't know when you're going to be listening to it, but I put out a reel, basically rental car companies. They're using AI now to scan your car as you leave and then
I
scan your
see
car
that.
as you come back in. And they take
Yep.
big high resolution, quote unquote, high resolution footage or 6T. I can't remember, like, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's a rental car company. I rented from them and I had to post a reel. So I rented it, returned it perfect, dry, didn't touch a thing, nothing wrong with it. I know everything was great. I went back in about 3, 4 weeks later. I get an email from them. Hey, there's a scratch on the wheel of it. And they sent a picture of it blown up. There's nothing on the wheel. There's no damage,
My
but you owe
gosh.
us $600.
No way.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. And I appealed it and they said, no, it's still up. And so I put out a reel. Guess how? So in 48 hours, guess how many views it got?
Million. I don't even know. What?
Million
What?
views. Yes.
My God.
And
So
so
I would
people
say,
were
did the company
commenting.
get back to you?
Yes, let me get to that. You're 100%. So 2.5 million views in 48 hours. And then you should see the comments. Like if you want to just go for fun, find that where I'm talking about it. There are thousands of people commenting. 6T or Sixt did this to me. They got $500. They got 600. So this is a scam. This is a racket that they're doing. And
Sure.
now this is about a week later, a little over a week and a couple days later, 4.5 million views. And after the first 48 hours, it blew up and 60 got back to me. And I got an email from the office of the COO, operation officer, saying, hey, we saw this reel. And he had a screenshot of me. Basically, they didn't say I did anything, or they did not say they did anything wrong. They also did not recant, say, hey, there was no damage. They just said, we're dropping it.
Sure.
Like, wow, okay, so you're trying to get $600 out of me. And now, because of my reel, you're now going to be losing probably millions of dollars because everybody is saying, I am never renting from that company again. Anyway, so I just like social media. I've been working hard on that. And so I get lots of reels that hit millions and millions of views because I just try to have fun and share with people good things.
That's
So
awesome.
I forgot to share. So
Yeah.
the Dustin Heiner. So on Instagram, Dustin Heiner, and reach out to me on DM saying, hey, I love heavy metal. I love talking to or listening to Chris. And then, just hey, let's chat. I want to help you out too. But man, it's been great hanging out with you again, Chris.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And again, I'll put links to everything you need in the show notes. So again, if you're driving or at the gym or whatever, don't worry. I'll put all the stuff in the show notes. Dustin, thanks again. Those of you that are listening and following along or watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time on the Extreme Personal Finance Show. See ya!